All right, so let's see what we got going on here. Um, we got two column notes. Again, test-wise, it's a nice way of organizing your thoughts, making sure you actually know what's going on. Remember, fold the paper over so you cannot see the answers, and you can talk yourself through it there. So, you ready to begin? There we go. There's the sounding horn. So parts of the graph that we want to be aware of, we've got ourselves the origin. All right. Sometimes it's easier to kind of use a picture for the origin and and it's right there. What is it? It's where the x and y axis meet. All right. She have little arrows on the end there for it. Yeah, there we go. So that's it there. It's your starting point, all those things there, but location-wise, there we go. Your x-axis, this goes left to right. Left to right lines are what we call horizontal, so it is your horizontal line, whereas the y-axis does go up and down, which is your vertical one that you're after. So those are words we definitely want to be familiar with, especially with our finding the length of our line segments. We talked about whether the line was horizontal or vertical. So the x-coordinate, that is the first number. All right. The y-coordinate, that is the second number. So sometimes it's easier just to draw out the picture like that. That kind of helps you out a little bit. So if you'd rather go about that approach, nothing wrong with that. All right, your quadrants that you have, your quadrants. All right, so your quadrants. I think it might be a little bit easier if we just kind of draw in the axis to kind of show where they are at. Again, very visual kind of unit that we've been doing here. Quadrant 1 starts in the upper right-hand corner, and then we go counterclockwise around 3, and then there is where 4 is at. So those are things that we want to make sure that we are comfortable with. Other things that we want to realize is that in quadrant 1, all right, yeah, they're both positive. All right, in quadrant 2, you got to go to the left to get to negative and then up to get to positive. For quadrant 3, you have to go to the left and down, so they're both negative. And in quadrant number 4, you go to the right, that makes it positive, and drop down, so it's negative. So those are things that we want to be aware of kind of when we look at our particular quadrants. Again, it's a labeling thing, it's a location thing. All right, when we reflect something over the x-axis, all right, remember what we end up doing here is you're trying to figure out how far from the x-axis, and that's your visualizing. You count how far from the x-axis, and you go the other direction. Remember, the other thing is we could use kind of our terms there, and this is where when you reflect over the x-axis, you leave the x-coordinate alone, and then you take the opposite of y. So if you like that, that's fine there. The reflection over the y-axis, well, instead of it being how far from the x-axis, it's how far from the y-axis. And if we did notation with it, this is where you would take the opposite of the x and then you would use the y. Again, you're not going to be required to use this terminology, but if it helps you out, that's fine. Don't worry about the double reflection. All right, it's just not something. If we take care of this, this takes care of it automatically. It's one less thing we have to worry about. All right, and the last one here is the finding the length of the segment. All right, to do that. No, come on, people, stay positive here. Finding the length of the segment. All right, so things that we've done with that. Well, the first thing we always did is we ended up sketching the particular line. All right, and the second thing we had to come up with was it a horizontal line? If it was, we used the x, because that's what the x-axis does. Or was it a vertical line? So we would use the y-coordinate, and that's the big thing there is which numbers to figure out what to use. Next thing here was all about you take the absolute value. And lastly, all right, this is when you had to decide if you had to add or subtract. Remember, we would add if it would cross an axis, and subtract when it doesn't cross the axis. This is one of those tests where a few vocabulary words that are in there, but then a lot of it is your application. Like I said, we're working a lot with your visualization skills, which always doesn't make it the easiest because you do have to kind of concentrate there a little bit. So don't be afraid to draw a picture with it, and just make sure that you're confident with your graphing. If you can do your graphing, you know to go left or right first and then up or down, you're going to find yourself in a much better situation.